folks, welcome to our little chat. My name is Afatchao, and I'm the president of the board of ICPSD.
My name is Whitney Schroeder. I'm the executive director of ICPSD, and today we are going to talk about transhumance. Transhumance?
Yeah, transhumance. that's a mouthful.
Not saying it well.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about transhumance today, as Whitney said. So, what is that concept, right?
Yeah.
People ask me whenever we use that concept. People ask, "What is the word?" It's a fancy way of basically saying that how one move livestock from one side of a feeding ground.
Okay.
To the other. Usually, this is done in a cyclical, seasonal manner, basically, right? The cattle if we take the context in the Togolese context, for example, humans happen when cattle, mostly from the Sahel region, right, moves down, following the season all the way to the coastal area because they're following green pastures, right?
Okay, so it's not limited by like country borders.
No.
Like that.
No.
Okay.
Because in West Africa we have nomadic tribes, especially the Fulanis and they mostly their native. I would say their native areas are like the Sahel region of Mali, Burkina, Niger. So these people are known from historically for being herders, right?
Okay.
Nomadic herders. So they follow green pasture basically, right? And since we have more rainy season in the south, like towards the coast, so whenever they run out of green grass or just grass in the Sahel region, they just migrate down towards the coast, right? Okay. And then following the green pasture, and then they come through. So that's the concept of transhumance that we have, in general. So basically, it's following, right?
Yep.
Moving from one, a feeding ground or to the other. Basically, moving the livestock, following that part, stuff in a cyclical manner. So they will go, and then they will go back to the Sahel region and then come down again. So yeah, and then on the way also they sell some of the cattle. So yeah.
Okay. So very similar to indigenous movements that we used to see in this country.
Correct.
All right. So that aside, how does that impact communities along their pathways?
Yeah. So a lot of the communities in Togo, and then in even some of the Sahel region, a lot of those communities are like farming communities, right? So people grow their farms and all those stuff. They eat. But the problem is that with the nomadic herders coming down coming from the Sahel region all the way down, is that they don't respect private property. They don't respect private property whatsoever. They destroy people's farm because they bring in we're talking about tens of thousands of cattle, and then that are descending and just eating everything they could put their hands on. And this has created a lot of community conflict. Yeah. In fact, if you look at the crisis going on in the Sahel region today, a lot of it is because of the fight between the farmers and the nomadic herders.
Okay.
Right? Because the nomadic herders, they inhabit a region that is desertic. They don't have anything.
Yeah.
But their main activity is cattle ranching. Not cattle ranching, but raising livestock.
Okay.
And they need feed for their livestock. The problem is they don't have it.
So they have to move.
They have to move.
Okay.
And while they're moving, they don't control their livestock really well. So their livestock end up grazing on people's farm, people's crops, right? And as such, they create a heavy conflict. We've seen people fighting with machetes, with weapons, with guns and all those stuff, trying to keep the nomadic herders out. And so this has been a major conflict in the region, to the point where the sub-regional organization known as ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African Country, they've set up a transhumance commission to basically police that. But they came up with something that is not easy to work with, basically.
Okay.
They basically allow open borders for the nomadic herders, and they asked each country to set up a national commission for transhumance, and then at the country, and then within the country, they've had county level transhumance committees and all those stuff.
Okay.
They're supposed to help with that process, but nobody really polices anything. Nobody. So this has been a challenge for not just like people like us trying to grow trees, where those carols will come down and destroy our trees, but most importantly, they're destroying crops.
Yeah, those small family farms.
Small farm, yeah, and you could. I've witnessed some of those. It's heartbreaking, basically, seeing somebody putting their life saving into farming, right? And that's gonna be at the end of the farming season. They will use the proceeds to pay for schooling for their kid. The food is what is gonna be eating, and so the entire life depends on that. And then somebody comes down with livestock, and then destroys everything overnight. And there is no insurance scheme or anything to basically help those people. It happened to me in Togo.
Yeah.
And I was paralyzed. I looked for help. There was nobody to help me.
That's devastating.
Right? So that's the challenge that we've been having, and that's also a challenge that most communities in the country are having, dealing with nomadic herders.
So I have a question, because we've talked about before how a lot of families rely on these small family farms and how they're important for their livelihood, both income and what they get to eat. How are like the big farms? So we know, we haven't talked about this a lot, but international parties coming in and doing huge ag operations in Togo, like buying up land and doing these huge ag operations, is that contributing to this conflict because they have the means to keep herders off of their land, or is that not as much a thing?
I would say in the Togolese concept, it's not a big problem, because we don't have big corporate farming in Togo yet. We don't have the lands to begin with.
Yeah.
People, I know that the Chinese are buying land. Other folks, other communities in the country, foreign communities in the country are buying lands, and even wealthy people like the elite in the country, they buy land. But for them, here is where it's helping them. For them, especially the elite in the country, when they buy land, they clear the land to grow teak. Cows don't eat teak.
So they stay away from it.
They stay away from it. Okay. So it's not going to do anything to the teak plantations, right?
Yeah.
So cows stay away from eating teak soap. There is no problem there. The problem is with people having farms, right?
Yeah.
And the people who might have like a sort of big agricultural exploitation, people who have a little bit of money, most of the time the local elite as well, or people who have retired from public service and all those stuff, they put their life savings into having like a sort of a small, I would say medium-sized agricultural exploitation. Those people have the resources to have people protect their land. They have people living there permanently that will actually kick out any intruders, right?
Okay.
But most folks don't have the resources to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, a lot of farms are not just close to the house either. I remember growing up, a lot of the farms you have to walk hours to get to your farm, and then you walk, so at night you're not there, and a lot of the grazing actually happen during nighttime.
Oh, okay. They bring them through.
Yes. I don't know if you remember a few years ago we found those nomadic herders not just destroying our trees in the outplanting side, but they actually had a settlement on the portion of the land, because the land is big. We didn't know for months that they had a settlement on the piece of land.
Set up their camp there.
So they will, and then even when we try to keep an eye on those grazing and stuff at night, they will just move them across the land and then destroy a lot of things. Those are the challenges we're facing.
I want you to speak to one question, because in the U.S. it's the lands we have, especially ag or livestock lands, it's like, well, why don't you just put a fence on it?
Oh boy, I wish we could do that. Fencing is pretty expensive, right?
Yeah.
Fencing is pretty expensive, and a lot of folks are not going to be able to fence, dozens, if not hundreds of acres of land. It's not possible. Over here, people could do it.
Well, just to give an example, so our outplanting site is what? How many acres? Not
I think in acres maybe 60 something,
60.
something.
And we priced out trying to look at fencing, and it was, when all was said and done, it was well over $5,000, I think. And that was like the most basic rudimentary fencing. And so then you think of these families who live average, what is it, just a couple of dollars a day? If
Yeah,
that.
actually no. What you were talking about, the 5,000 was not the $5,000 was not for the entire plot. It was only for
That's
going
right.
to be
Yeah.
the
What we
place,
had planted
what
so
we
far.
planted so
Yeah.
far, which is not that
Which is not even half
half
of
of
that
the
acreage.
yeah.
That's
So,
true.
but another option basically, and that's what we're trying to do, is basically to plant trees and use them as fence. And that's not easy because every time you plant trees, cows are coming and destroying them
Yeah.
as you're planting them, right? So you end up having like trees, one here, maybe one after how many?
How many seasons?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not easy to do that either. So it's really frustrating, and a lot of folks in the country, a lot of the community members don't have the resources
No.
to basically fence their farm, right?
Yeah.
And another question is why don't we have open grazing lands?
Designated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for those people. And that has always been my question to them. Like, if you come into the community, and the community knows, and everybody knows in the community that these people come cyclically, and they know that they cannot ban them from coming into the area, then have some public land designated for those type of purposes, and have them invest. Or you can actually force them to buy land. They can have their own grazing land. They don't have to be destroyed because people don't have the resources to begin with, and then in this community, these people will come and destroy everything, and it's painful to watch. It's really painful to watch, and the people who are technically supposed to basically be actively managing that process, the transhumance commission, they literally don't do anything. Worse, a lot of them own livestock
Oh no.
that are being used. So when you go to see them, when you go talk to them to solve your issue, they don't care. That's why, for example, remember when we've tried to actively
Yes.
engage
Yes.
the how do you call it, the
Officials.
no, we've engaged the official on the issue. We've engaged various communities on the issue, and we have multiple meetings with those nomadic herders. The problem is that they don't listen because they know that they have people protecting them from up, higher up, right? So they don't listen to us. And let's say you're the chairman of the commission, and yet you have your own cows in that livestock that is grazing on people's stuff.
Conflict of interest.
How can you resolve that problem?
Yeah.
Right? It's an issue, and not just people in the small in the community, not just higher people in the community, higher people in the country own
Right.
hundreds, if not thousands, of livestock that are embedded in those nomadic herders, livestock, and then they go and they do stuff with impunity. Nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
Nothing, and it's really frustrating. Really, really frustrating, especially in our case where we are trying to grow trees where it would take years for those trees to grow. You grow trees and then they're growing, and at certain level of once they reach certain height, the nomadic herders will come with their livestock, go through it, and then if you're lucky, they will trample some of them, and then they will leave. They will just eat the leaves. If you're not lucky, what they've been doing recently, they will have a machete and cut down the trees for their livestock. That's the most painful. So imagine trying to collect data on the tree growth and all those stuff. Imagine you will measure a tree today that is like a 2 meter high, and then all of a sudden you come back next year, it's not even 10 centimeters.
Yeah.
Why? Because they cut it down for the
Yeah.
and it's really, really, really frustrating. But it's something that we are continuously working on. Right, we are engaging the communities, we are engaging them, we are engaging a lot of folks. We have multiple meetings, and little by little, but ultimately, what will save us from especially for our experimental side, which is very important because we're collecting data.
Yeah.
We are learning how to grow those native species and sharing the science so that others could use it as well. So what we're trying to do is basically, once we have, we're able to raise resources, then we could actually build a permanent structure on the site
Yes.
and have somebody staying there permanently. That will their job will be to not just actively, taking care of, the trees and all those stuff, but also policing around and making sure that nomadic herders don't come around and destroy. Because what
Really
we're doing,
stay on the unplanted.
what we're doing is gonna be key for how people grow trees in the future. And if we learn, if we get our data right and we can share what we're learning from our site, then that will help other communities grow their trees faster, right? So we hope that we will get to a point where we can actually get that done in the next years, or next couple of years, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a good point about the data, because it's, I remember one of the things a couple years ago, for those of you who have been with ICPSD for a while, you may have remembered some of our newsletters talking about this and how we had several plots that were quite devastated by this issue. And so one of the other effects of this is not just the eating and trampling and cutting down of the plants that affects the data, but it's also what happens to the soil around those plants. It gets really compacted from all of the cattle moving through. And so in a way, that's another way that sort of skews the data, because then moisture can't be absorbed by the soil as well. It's going to run off more to other places, and it just, it creates these challenges for us in terms of, getting the information we need so we can share it with others. But it's all part of the dynamics.
Yeah. Yes,
so.
exactly. So I think you nail it right, because if we can collect the right data, it will be very difficult to actually, make sort of extrapolations out of the data that we are actually getting. So, and we're working in the community, right? As frustrating as it is, because we're in the community, we experiencing the same frustration that people have in the community. If we're able to find a solution, yes, fencing is good, but beyond that, I think stakeholder engagement is still a strong piece. We do a lot of it, but we are hoping that at the local level, at least at the decision makers level in country, we will be able to reach a point where the folks will understand the importance of actually managing these conflicts. It's a conflict. It's a social conflict, right? It's a social conflict within the area, and so far the solutions that have come up from the top down, they haven't been appropriate for folks at the local level yet. Right? People still feel the same frustration. Every year, each year, when it comes, when the cattle herders are coming down, people feel the same type of frustration, and this is leading to battles, social conflict. I mean, real battle between communities, and if they wanted to solve a lot of the problems in the region, they need to. This is something they need to tackle. It's very important, right? So,
any last thoughts on that?
I guess that's all I have on that, and as frustrating as it is, it's a part of the process. So as we are learning, we will be sharing our our takeaways. We'll be sharing our knowledge, whatever we learn from with everybody, so that others could use. Others don't have to reinvent the wheels, basically.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.